My name is Freddy Zental Weaver. I'm one of the co-founders and directors of Tantra Nova Institute in Chicago. Today, I want to talk with you about the integrated man, the new man, integrating the sexual and emotional aspects of our beingness. And I was first introduced to these practices when I was 13 years old. I was living in Hawaii, going through my puberty. My father was a practicing psychiatrist, and I was spending a lot of time in the shower, as a lot of guys do when they get into their puberty. He probably thought I was going to hurt myself in there and gave me a book to read on how to integrate sex and meditation, sexual meditation. I loved it. My girlfriend loved it. And well, I had even more than that. I had a dream to go to college on athletic scholarship, but I didn't believe I could do it. These practices assisted me in getting past my belief to fall into a new belief. And of course, I did all the practice and work in the physical world to get there. There was an ease about it, a flow and an enjoyment about doing it. And I went on to college on athletic scholarship. After college, I kept doing these practices and reading books and applying these principles in my personal relationships. I was in the software business, and it was exciting for about the first 15 years. After that, it was just a job. And what I knew about my own inspiration in life, something was missing. There was an opportunity in Chicago. I'd never lived in Chicago before, so I took it. Now I'm in Chicago. This is 22 years ago. I'm single. I'm looking for a Shakti, a female Tantra partner, and I meet my wife, Elsbeth. I didn't know it at the time, but I really came to Chicago to meet her. Well, she was on her own Tantra journey. We pooled our resources and we created this work. And the work has been so fulfilling for ourselves and for me, particularly individually, and for the people that we have introduced this work to all over the world, singles and couples, for the last 22 years. And today I want to share with you some of the fundamentals of how we do this. Sexual enlightenment, sexual consciousness. 1937, there was a book written by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. His main focus was teaching people how to be inspired and believe that they could be rich. And it was one of the most sold books in the world, Think and Grow Rich. And he was quite famous. And in his book, he doesn't talk much about it, but he mentions lucky is the person who learns how to use their sexual energy to create, in his case, wealth. Well, he didn't tell you how to do it, but we do. And it can be wealth, or it can be relationships. It can just be using your masculine, sexual, powered, energetic, aware self in an integrated way, which is new. Because typically, as men, we learn kind of one thing. You know, the little guy with the little erection. Look, ma, no hands. And as adults, we're run by our little head our whole life. So learning how to move that sexual energy to your heart separates the automatistic kind of lusting appearance, the stuckness that we have. I mean, the shame, the fear, the guilt. Is it too big? Is it too hard? Is it too small? I mean, it's loaded. Broken dreams, shame, guilt, fear. So once we start bringing consciousness to this aspect of our beingness, we can start to utilize this creative life force energy in a new way to connect with our dreams, our hopes, our desires, the things that you most deeply desire in your life. It seems a little unrelated in terms of how does sex get you there. So I want to share with you some of the fundamentals of really what you need to do not need, but what you do to get there. It begins with the breath. The breath is fundamental for us. Without it, we wouldn't be alive. And typically we breathe in the upper chest. But when we bring the breath down into the diaphragm and belly, it does a couple of things. One, it separates, gives us a little pause from whatever story we got going on. The weather, how could she say that? There's traffic, whatever it might be. It gives us a little pause from what happens in the thought is the cascading total felt sense of the thought. So, and also secondly, we breathe more efficiently, more endorphin, serotonin, oxytocin, the feel-good hormones. So breathing in a Buddha belly breath way, we actually put our body in a chemical state of ease. The second piece to that is we begin to develop what we call the witness state of mind. The witness state of mind is where we're watching the stories, the thoughts, the narrative. And we can start to, from that place, get a little bit of distance from the thoughts that come from places that are deeply rooted for us, where we look into the world from, our old experiences. And this is really vitally important. to begin to move towards what we most deeply desire. When we've got an old story that we aren't even aware of running and that stops us, and we don't know why we keep getting stopped. So bringing in the sexual piece to shift something. In the sexual meditation piece, what we're starting to work with is how the life force energy puts us in an altered state. Whether we're doing consciousness work or not, when we are in our sexual energy with ourselves or with our partners, we are in more of a loving, emotional, connected, aware, vulnerable state. Chemically, again, more endorphin, serotonin, oxytocin, the feel-good hormones. So now in a meditative practice with sexual energy, we put intention to it. Now, in that altered state, we get more connected to what we don't see running in the background, and we can often move with grace, ease, and flow and see things and get insightful opportunities to move something out of the way that has been in the way emotionally, energetically for us in creating what we most deeply desire. So I want to share with you just a little practice, and this is something you can start to do on your own on a regular basis. And this is the belly breath. So if you put a hand on your belly, and we're just going to do 5 breaths like this. And as you inhale through your nose, I want you to visualize the breath coming into the nose, down your trachea, lungs, extending into your diaphragm and belly like a big balloon on your inhalation. Follow with your awareness your breath back up and out through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Stay with that breathing, and I'll keep talking. As thoughts come in, don't give it a lot of attention. Just let it be, let it go. Bring your focus and awareness back to your breath, following your breath in your nose, trachea, lungs, extending the diaphragm and belly on the inhalation. Following the breath back up and out through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Stay with it. Letting your thoughts come, letting your thoughts go. Just breathing and watching any conversations, interpretations, or meaning. For now, just breathing and being. One more breath. Beautiful. Now that practice that we just did was just a few seconds. And in that few seconds, you had hundreds of thoughts probably. And maybe in those hundreds of thoughts, in those few seconds we did that, you might have had 1 or 2 seconds where it was just stillness. There was just the breath, the rise of the belly and the fall of the belly. That is what we want to build more familiarity and accessibility to, because it's in that little space as we continue to do this kind of breathing that we have longer and longer moments of just watching the thoughts without, again, what we call the total felt sense of the thought. It's in that space, that nothingness, that we can start to create and bring in what we most deeply desire, whatever it is for you. The third piece to this is energetic awareness. So energy manifests in a lot of ways. You can have a thought, and then you can have a feeling about a thought, and then you can have an action from that thought. So thoughts are as powerful as anything else. We don't often think of them as energy, but everything's energy. We're just a denser form of it in our physical form. So bringing our awareness to energy, like when you get angry, you feel something in your body. And if you could get away from the right and the wrong of whatever you're angry about and just tune into your body, that's where you could see where the energy shows up. And so there are ways to begin to start to recognize this energy in our bodies, which gives us a little more distance from how we react to something, which allows us a little more space to then create more of something. So just beneath this disconnect, there is this connectedness. When I'm pissed off because of the traffic on the highway, it's my anger. I'm the one, the traffic or the cars are still just in the road. But when I can begin to shift that and let go of wanting it different than it is, there's nothing but peace and connectedness. So that's what's really beneath a lot of the upset that we have. So this is a great example of that. So this is called an energy ball. And when I complete the connection within myself, the ball lights up. When I break the connection, the ball stops lighting up. And this is just an illustration of this connectedness, this circuit that's constantly available to us in just breathing and being present. And from that place, it's like I can't change the weather, but I can change how I feel about it. And that gives me a whole nother experience of how I'm looking into the world and how I'm experiencing the world. So then we extrapolate this up through our bodies and how we feel this energy in our bodies. And for men, we now get into the sexual piece. And for the man, in all the variations of Tantra that there are, the primary edict is for the man to learn to separate ejaculation from orgasm. And for a lot of guys, that's about as far as they've heard about Tantra. And yes, you will have better love sessions with yourself and with your partner. But more than that, learning how to separate ejaculation is a couple of things. One, there's a physiological aspect to that. So if I show you this is called a lingam, which is Sanskrit for penis, lingam, and it means wand of light, much more endearing than dickhead. So when we look at this energy that we have that's so abundant for us, and when we're in it, it's pleasurable, and actually we can create life from this energy, there is a consciousness. And when we bring consciousness to the sexual, creativity and pleasure start showing up in areas of life that seem completely unrelated to sex. But the process of beginning to even do that is first for the man separating ejaculation from orgasm. So what happens in the ejaculatory process? The scrotum pulls up against the base of the lingam, and the sacs on the testes eject the ejaculant out the urethra, and then we have that wonderful orgasmic feeling for about 3 seconds, and then we have refractory. And the older you get, the longer it takes for the energy to come back. So in the tantric practices, we learn not just to last longer, because a lot of guys, can last as long as they want. We're not talking about lasting longer. We're talking about dancing on the edge of the sword, dancing on the edge of the sword of that 3-second orgasm, extending that experience out to 30 minutes, 40 minutes, as long as you want. And you do that with breath awareness, which we started, and muscle awareness, which is another process and learned, and energetic awareness. And you can start to circulate this, what I call orgasmic nectar, through your heart, with your partner, all the way up through your whole body. And you can just play in that ether for as long as you want. In a sexual meditation, you have intention, and it's in that place. It's kind of like we started with the stillness of the breath for the few seconds out of that few second meditation and all the hundreds of thoughts that you had. That stillness is expanded in the sexual piece. The French call it the little death. So we're really starting to play with that creative, cosmic, empty space to start bringing in what we most deeply desire. And I know you might say, well, that sounds a little woo-woo. But you know what's really woo-woo? Single-cell amoebas, multi-cell organisms, and a universe that goes on for ad infinitum. And that's our lineage. We're just beginning to uncover who and what we're a part of. So that's a little the physiological practice of this. You can learn more about this in the workshops and seminars that we teach. The men's workshop I've got coming up going throughout the year. As part of the show notes, there is a link that you can download that will teach you sustaining masculine pleasure, and that's a beginning. But I do hope to see you all at something soon. Don't live your life and miss how to use your life force or sexual energy to be the empowered man and to live with full, actualized, creative self.